Hello and welcome to the PhD Life Coach podcast. And if you are listening to this in real time, welcome to 2025. This is our first episode of the new year. I hope you've all had a wonderful festive period and are feeling rested and as though you used the time period in the ways that you intended, mostly. None of us do perfectly, but that you mostly spent it how you intended. Now, this is the ideal time of year to be talking about the stuff that we're talking about this week, because this is a time where we're all thinking about goals and resolutions and what we want to do more of, less of, or achieve this year. And often we think about those new resolutions, but we don't think about the things that we might let go of. And I find that people get really, really caught up in this, that they don't know when to walk away from a goal. In psychology, we call this goal disengagement, where we decide that actually this goal that we were working towards, we are not going to do for lots of different reasons, and we're going to re-engage with a different goal instead. So today we're going to think about why doing that feels so challenging, why it can be really important, and some tips about how to make it a little bit easier for you to know when and if to change your plans. I'm also going to use an example from my own life, which has a lot of relevance for many, many of you. I can tell you a little bit about some career changes I made as we go along, that's fine. But towards the end of this episode, I am going to talk you through a big decision that I have made about the ways that I'm going to support all of you guys this year. So make sure you listen all the way to the end to find out what is going to be out there for you in 2025. And it's good news. I think you're going to love it. So why is it so painful sometimes to decide to change a goal? Sometimes this is because of something that you may have heard of before, which is called the sunken cost fallacy. This idea that we've put so much time and effort into something that it would be a real waste to move on and not achieve that goal. So at its most extreme, sometimes this is choosing to leave academia, or choosing to leave your PhD, for example. Other times it might be a sort of smaller scale version of that, deciding not to pursue a particular research project that you thought you were going to do and move to a different one instead. We often get quite fixated on the time and effort and money and emotional and cognitive effort that we've put into this already. And there's a real human tendency to tell ourselves that that would be wasted if we decided to do something else. The reason it's called a fallacy, though, is that what we do as humans is we often overlook the fact that all of that time, effort, money, cognitive energy, emotional energy is already spent, regardless of what we do. It's not that if we continue down this path, we somehow get that effort back. That's spent. It's spent if we go down that path. It's spent if we choose to not go that way and go down another path. And when we can look at it like that, that effort is in the past, regardless of what we decide to do now, then we can be a little bit more logical looking forwards as to which would be a better path for us. So instead of sort of relating it to, I need to keep going in order to make that effort worth it, seeing that as something that's spent, that's gone, which is the better fit for me moving forwards. And often the truth is that the time, effort, and energy you put into one thing may well set you up to do something different anyway. So I had two major pivots in my career. So I went into a sort of standard academic job, I guess, started out in postdocs and then got a lectureship, senior lectureship, all at the same institution. And it was around then that I decided that I didn't like research anymore, that I loved reading other people's research and knowing about it, and I loved teaching people about it, but I didn't enjoy the actual doing of it anymore. And so I decided at that stage to pivot to a teaching career. Now, it would have been very easy to sort of lament all of that time and effort that I had spent building up a research portfolio and a research reputation and a network of people around the world who knew my research and knew me and where I felt part of that community. I could have spent quite a lot of time feeling like that was wasted and that I could have gone into a more teaching oriented career originally. But I think what I was able to do was two things. One was to accept that that was spent, as I said, and accept that whatever I decided at this point, that effort was done, and I now got to choose which was a better path for me. And for me, that was a very straightforward decision. The teaching career was the one that I found myself doing. People were telling me you need to spend less effort on your students and your teaching and stuff because you need to do the other stuff for your career. And I just couldn't persuade myself to write my papers and write my grants and things, especially grants. I like writing grants, but I didn't want to get them. That was the real deciding factor for me, was when I was like, I don't want to write this grant because if I get this grant, I'm going to have to do this grant. And that's another 4 years of research and I don't want to. And that was when it was like, oh, okay, this is time for a change. So one thing was that I was able to quite easily put behind me the fact that this effort was already done and that I now needed to make a decision for future me looking forwards rather than being quite so caught up in past me. The other reason that I think can be really useful for all of us is I really recognized how all the time and effort that I put into becoming the researcher that I was would also help me in my teaching career. And I think sometimes we underestimate this. Those of you who might be considering changing your research project or even leaving your current position, you will have learned a whole load of stuff through the process of the effort you've put in so far that will stand you in great stead whatever you go on and do, even if it's something completely different. I was doing psychophysiology, I was doing stress immunology, so I was doing lab work in a kind of cardiovascular sense, electrodes all over people and all that jazz. And I was doing lab work in a kind of wet lab environment. And I was doing sort of psychological assessments and manipulations in a variety of ways. So I was learning all these research techniques that I was not going to use in my teaching. And I wasn't even teaching that stuff a lot of the time, right? I was given other modules to teach. Yet the skills that I developed as a person and as a researcher made me way better in my teaching oriented career. So remembering that that time and effort is never wasted, it's brought you to where you are now, and now you get to make the decision that's right for you going forwards. The second reason, and I think in our kind of world, this is even more pressing than in most situations. The second reason I think people find changing their plans so difficult is that they make it mean something about them. They make it mean that they failed in that goal. They make it mean that they made the wrong decision back then when they decided on the original goal, and that that's bad, and that means something bad about you that you made that wrong decision. And we make it mean that we don't have discipline or we don't stick to plans. I have clients, people in my membership who come to me quite regularly and they proudly say, oh, if I commit to something, I am definitely going to follow it through. No matter what, I am someone who always follows through. And they say that very proudly. And there are some, I think this comes like from childhood and stuff as well, that often people present it that way, right? We as a family, we stick to our goals. Even when the going gets tough, we stick to our goals. And there's something beautiful about that, but there's also something that makes me a little bit worried, because there does sometimes reach a point where sticking to your goals is not in your best interests. For example, many of you all know I'm a sports scientist. I don't watch that much sport these days, but I kind of love that stuff. Quite often in these sort of endurance events, you will see people who are finishing with horrible injuries, finishing where they're so dizzy they don't even know where they are, they're getting dragged across the line by competitors, and it's held up as some heroic thing. And I'm a bit like, nah, there's pushing through uncomfortableness, there's trying to have a commitment to something that was important to you. But if it's either no longer important to you, no longer good for your physical or mental health, or no longer looking in any way plausible, it's okay to let it go. It's okay to decide, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to do something different instead. And if we can separate that from our sense of self, if we can separate that from our sort of perspective of ourselves as somebody who does the things they intend, it's so much easier to make that decision, because suddenly you're making decisions about things that are just like, I might do this or I might do that. I might not do that anymore. I might do this now. And it becomes so much lighter than if I choose to leave my PhD. All my friends will think I'm an idiot. My family will be so disappointed. It will mean I made the wrong decision joining in the first place. It will mean I failed. I will look back on this moment and regret it for the rest of my life. If we make it mean all of that stuff, it's virtually impossible to leave, or certainly without, trying to leave without a whole lot of unnecessary pain and awfulness. Whereas if we see it just as a different task, a different goal, saying, you know what, I thought my PhD, my academic career, whatever it is, was going to be this, and it's not worked out like that. That's not how it's gone. Then we get to decide that something else might fit us better. And other people, they might be disappointed, they might not. That's their prerogative. They get to have their thoughts and feelings. But we at least get to tell ourselves that it doesn't have to mean anything about me. It doesn't even mean it was the wrong decision. It was the right decision at the time. You thought what was going to happen would work for you. And now you know more. Now you have more insight, you have more experience, you have more wisdom, and now you know better what's a good fit for you. And you get to make that decision. And this goes all the way down to like study designs and all of that sort of stuff. Often we think, oh, I've put loads and loads of effort in, I've already interviewed 20 people on these topics and whatever. I've already collected this much data, this many samples, I have to keep going this way. But if you're learning that the analysis isn't working, or you're learning that actually this isn't getting to the crux of the research question that you're trying to answer, it doesn't mean you were wrong. It just means you know more now. It just means you're more experienced, and you get to pick whether you want to keep going or not. I remember the other big pivot point in my career was obviously leaving academia to start doing this full time. And I don't know, I feel like I'm not good at change. I was about to say I feel like I must be good at change. I never changed universities, and that's a whole other conversation for another day. We're not going to get into that one today. But when it came to major decisions about my career, I feel like I was pretty good at separating it from my sense of self. When I came to tell people that I was leaving academia in order to set up this business and coach all of you guys, I remember so many people being like, you're so brave. You're so, like, I was going off to do this, like, terrible, like I was going off to war or something. It's like, it's not brave. It just sounds loads more fun than the thing I'm doing at the moment. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve over here. I've done what I wanted to do, and now I want to do something different. And I think it's important. I think people will pay me for it, and I think I can make it work. And I remember laughing because I remember thinking, I don't think this is brave. I don't quite understand. But I think for a lot of people, they're so wedded to that identity of the previous plan, that identity of being an academic, and they would make it mean something about themselves if they chose to leave. Now, as usual, caveat, the one caveat I would put in here is in both cases, when I pivoted to a teaching focused career and when I pivoted to leave and set up the PhD Life Coach, I was leaving from a point of success. And I do think that made it easier for me. I wasn't failing as a research member of staff. I'd got grants, I had good publications, I was successful, I'd just been promoted to senior lecturer. So it wasn't that I couldn't make it as a researcher. And similarly, when I left academia entirely in order to do this work, I'd been made full professor 2 years before. It was all going well. My career was on the up. And I do have to concede that I do think that helped. It made it easier for me to feel like, right, I've done that. I could keep doing that, but I choose not to. So that did make me feel a bit more empowered, I think, as I went through my career. I do think it's more challenging if you're leaving because something hasn't worked out for you, because you're not succeeding in the ways that you wanted to. But even then, you get to choose whether that fail, in inverted commas, is a fail of that specific goal and that specific task, or whether it's a fail of you as a person in some sort of kind of stable and ongoing way. Those are very different things. You can not achieve a goal, and one that you really wanted to, that you really thought you'd be able to, and things like that. You cannot achieve that goal, and you can be specifically disappointed about the fact that that didn't go the way you wanted it to, without that kind of generalization about what that means as you as a person. We don't have to be like, oh, I learned so much, it was worth it. Da, da, da. No, you can be super disappointed, be frustrated, be pissed off, it's fine. Okay? Have all the emotions about that goal that didn't work for you. Just be really careful that you're not generalizing it to mean that you're a failure, that you're a terrible person, that you let people down, that blah, blah, blah. Okay? We can be sad, we can be disappointed, frustrated, but it doesn't have to mean anything about you as a person. Now, hopefully that's kind of dealt with some of these reasons why it can be quite difficult to even consider changing your goals. Then the next question is often, how do you choose? And here I'm going to touch on this lightly, but I will also refer you back to my podcast about how to make decisions that you love, which covers this in much, much more detail. But essentially, my go-to always is to think about what would be my reasons. What would be my reasons to stay? What would be my reasons to go? So I'm going to give you one quick example from my career turning point, and then I'm going to tell you the new and exciting news where I've made a change decision of my own. So in terms of my career, when it came to leaving academia, I did this. I was thinking, what would be my reasons to set up my business, to leave academia and set up my business? And my reasons were, people really need this. PhD students and academics really, really need the support that I know I can offer. So I definitely felt like it would help people. I definitely felt like I was able to do it. So another reason was like, I think I can do this. I think this uses the bits of me that I like most and the bits of me that come most naturally to me. Whereas the more I progressed through academia and the more it became kind of strategic and data informed and long-term planning and consultative and all these things, the more I found it out of my comfort zone. So I felt like it used the best bits of me. Another reason was it seemed fun. It seemed fun and exciting. It felt like I would learn a load of new things. And then the final one was a personal one. Leaving the university enabled me to also leave where I had been living previously and move closer back to my aging parents and my sisters and things like that. So there was kind of a personal reason there too. And those were my main reasons why I would choose that move. Now, when I then think about why I would have stayed in academia, at that stage, I would have stayed in academia because I like the people. You know, I still miss wandering across campus and bumping into my colleagues and stuff. So I would have stayed because I liked the people. I would have stayed because it was a stable income, a good stable income. I would have stayed. I don't even know. I don't think I would have stayed because it was what people expected, because I quite like doing what people don't expect. But, you know, there was a career path ahead of me that would have led to lots of influence and quite a lot more money. So I would have stayed for that career path, I guess. There were reasons to stay in Birmingham, but that was a separate decision. You know, I adore my friends and hobbies and stuff in Birmingham. But yeah, those were my main reasons. And what you then do is you look at those reasons and you say, which of these reasons do I like best? Which of these reasons can I stand behind? If this all goes wrong, which reasons am I willing for it all to go wrong for? And I knew for me, and particularly, I know this is different for different people who are in different environments, but for me, I would far rather regret doing something than regret not doing it. I would far rather have failed by trying to set up a business that was going to help people, that was going to bring me a working life that I really liked, that enabled me to be near my family, and that was exciting and learning new things. If that was going to go wrong, I would far rather go wrong doing that than to go wrong by doing another 10 years in a career that I was increasingly not enjoying. Which would I regret more? I would 100% regret more having allowed another 5-10 years to pass without making the decision to move on. So you get to look at those reasons, and it's like, which version of you do you like best? Which of these represents who you want to be? And I knew that the version that chose to leave was the version of me that I liked best. It was I would have stayed through some sort of risk aversion more than anything else. And I don't want to do that. And I have to say, 2 and a bit years later, and again, I'm biased because it's all working really well. I'm getting good clients and it's all beautiful. So I am maybe a bit biased, but I am so glad I made this decision. And I just decided, if I'm deciding to do this and I love the reasons, then I'm just going to have to make it work. Have a vague agreement with my husband when our mortgage is due. If I'm not making enough money by then, I'm going to have to do something else. But that's fine, because it's not going to happen, because I'm going to make it work. So I decided these were the reasons I like best, and I decided that I would make it work. And that's what you get to do too. Now, this is where I want to share with you the more recent decision that I've been making, that I'd already planned to do this episode, but then this just fitted beautifully into it. And that is around my membership. So those of you listening will know that I have a membership program for PhD students where you get access to online group coaching, regular workshops, a Slack community where you can ask for advice, self-paced courses, all sorts of stuff. It's amazing. And I truly believe that as it stands at the moment, it is also amazing value for money. It's £97 a month, and you get all of that from it. When you compare it to any of the other membership programs on the market across the general population, it's very affordable and great value, in my opinion. However, I was also getting caught up in whether it was too expensive for PhD students. There's a difference between not believing something is good value. You get a lot for that money. But that is not the same thing as, can the key people that you want to help afford this product? And I had a couple of people who'd been super engaged members tell me that they weren't able to carry on with a membership because they couldn't afford the monthly payment. It was too much to commit to. And then I had 1 or 2 people that were saying, can I leave for a month because I don't think I'm going to use the sessions too much this month, and then come back in a month, and that kind of sort of slightly in and out. And at first I told myself, don't panic, you're getting lots of new members, it's fine. And I wasn't concerned that I couldn't recruit people at that price. I absolutely could. I already have one-to-one clients who are paying me more than that. And so I know some PhD students can afford this. So I sort of checked in with myself and I was like, are you just panicking that you're going to lose some people? Because it's normal. You're going to lose some people, you'll gain some people, it's fine. And I realized that wasn't it. The reason I was feeling uncomfortable was because these students that were telling me that they couldn't carry on because it was too expensive were exactly the sort of students that I wanted to be helping, and exactly the sort of students that I had already seen gain so much from the membership. And so I started having this sort of dilemma of, should I drop my prices? And I could hear my brain chattering in both directions about this, sort of reasons why I should, reasons why I shouldn't, and all of this. And I didn't spin very much, but I started to spin a little bit on it. And I sort of took a deep breath and was like, right, let's practice what we preach. Let's think this all through. And I actually used my voice note technique. If you haven't looked at my episode about what to do when you've got a overwhelmed brain, swirling brain, can't remember what it's called, I'll link to it in the show notes, the one where I talk about using voice notes, I used that to talk through what I was thinking about this decision. And then from there, I started to sort of parse out what would be my reasons for reducing my price and what would be my reasons for retaining my price. And I realized my reasons for reducing my price were mostly things to do with being accessible to a wider range of students. And I love that reason. I was talking it through with my sister, and she said to me, if you could have 50 students paying less or 25 students paying more, which would you want? And in my membership, that's a no-brainer. I want 50 students paying less. Yeah, I want to help as many people as I can in the membership. One-to-one's different, right? Because I've only got so many hours in the day. So in one-to-one, I'd rather have fewer students paying more. But in terms of the membership, I have capacity for more people in my sessions at the moment, and I'd rather help more people. And so then I was like, well, hang on, then why isn't this an easy decision? Why haven't you just made this decision already? What would be your reasons to stay as you are? And one reason was I already think it's good value. Okay. I quite like that reason. That's a reasonable reason. It's already good value. I stand by that original decision. My second reason was immediately thinking about my existing clients. What am I going to do with the people that have paid these higher prices? Because I was saying, like, if I drop the price, then they're going to be like, hang on, how did they suddenly get it for that much when we paid this much? And then the third reason was you guys. The third reason that I was thinking that I wouldn't do it was the thought of telling people that I was dropping my prices and you guys potentially thinking that that was because I couldn't get enough people or that I was failing, I was getting desperate or any of these things. And those were my main reasons. And so for me, it was a dead simple decision. Once I sort of pulled that out of my brain, and that always takes a little bit of wiggling, to figure out what you're thinking. Once I pulled that out of my brain, dead easy decision. I love the reasons to make this cheaper, and I do not love the reasons. I love it's good value already. That one I stand by. Other than that, the worrying about existing clients, that's fixable. I like it that I'm considerate of that, but it's fixable. I can talk to them, not a problem. And the idea that I was sort of a bit embarrassed to tell people I was going to do that, didn't like that reason. That's not who I am, how I want to be, how I want to do business. And so from there, it became this, okay, I want to do this. So how do I transition? And that's the point you then need to make. If you decide you're going to change your research project, leave what you're doing, set a different goal, whatever it is, you then get to think, okay, how do I transition from one to the other in a way that makes the most of all the benefits that you want, plus any additional benefits that might come from it that you haven't thought of yet, and that mitigates the stuff you're worried about, i.e. your reasons to stay. And for me, what that looked like was making a decision about the price going forward, which I will tell you in a second, making a decision about the price going forward and the structure of the membership. I started with that, and then deciding how I was going to mitigate the things that I was worried about. The value, I am happy. If it is now even better value than it was, happy days. That's fine. I'm down with that. If in terms of my existing clients, you all know who you are, you know what we've already agreed, I've made arrangements with them where they will get some special bonuses for the fact that they have paid more for this process than it is going to cost in future. So I have sorted them all out. You do not need to worry. We're in the process of giving them all those special bonuses. And then in terms of telling people about this, I thought, well, you value transparency, you value openness, clarity. Why do we not just tell them? Tell people the process that you went through. Tell people why you made this decision. And I had actually already got scheduled in a How and When to Change Your Plans podcast episode that I hadn't written, but I knew I was going to do that topic. And I was like, you know what? This is a perfect example in real time of me deciding to change plans. And so that's what this episode is. It's me mitigating that final concern, the sort of public perception of this decision. I mean, as if you guys spend lots of time worrying about this stuff. I am self-aware enough to know that's not true. But I thought, actually, this is a really nice opportunity to be able to talk through a real life case study. So on to the details before we wrap up. The details are, the one additional change I've made is that we are now going to operate in quarters. So you are only going to be able to join the membership 4 times this year. It's going to open at the end of January and it will open every 3 months after that. So if you want in for this first quarter, you need to join at the end of January. The reason for that is because behavior change takes time. I don't want people dipping in for a month, disappearing for a month, dipping in when they can. I want people to come in and have sustained support for 90 days on a specific goal that you're trying to achieve at the moment in your PhD, and to get the support you need to actually see tangible changes in your life. And that takes a minimum of 3 months. So it's going to open at the end of January. We're going to have a 3-month quarter. There'll be like a startup call where we identify our goals, things like that. There's going to be an introduction to the membership for new members. There's going to be all the weekly. So there's 3 group coaching sessions a week. There's workshops every 2 weeks where you get more kind of tangible tools and things like that. You'll get access to all my online courses immediately. Previously, we had this kind of 2-tier system where monthly members got access to some of it and people that paid for 6 months got more. Now, everyone pays by the quarter. Flat rate, exactly the same. Everyone gets access to everything. So whether it's be your own best boss, or what to do if you've got too much to do, or how to make decisions and prioritize, all that good stuff is all just there. And part of what I will help you do is identify which bits you want to work on, which bits are priorities at the moment, so that you don't feel overwhelmed and that you can kind of systematically work on the things that are going to help you to achieve your goals. So it's 3 months. It's going to open at the end of January. It previously cost £97 per month or £475 for 6 months. Now it is going to be £147, Great British pounds, per quarter. 147. So it is virtually half price. Okay, if you're not in the UK, you'll need to translate that out into yours. It will be a subscription. So once you've signed up, it will charge you again in 3 months' time unless you choose to cancel. So it's sort of encouraging people to be an ongoing part of this membership. It hopefully moves it. It's still money, and I'm still aware there'll be still some PhD students who can't afford it, but it hopefully moves it into a more sustainable, ongoing choice for people to make. So that's my big news. If you're sitting there going, yeah, I still can't do that, that's cool. No worries. I got you. That's why this podcast will always remain free. And it's why there will still be 1 workshop per month. So a 1-hour coaching session where there's going to be this year, there's going to be a specific topic and some coaching that is completely free for anybody on my newsletter or anybody that signs up for it in advance. So if you're somebody who's like, I am never able to pay for this, it's fine. You get my podcast, you get my newsletter, you get 1 free seminar per month. Okay. If, however, you want more sustained support, you want more contact with me, you want more interaction, you want a community around you, you want co-working sessions, we're adding those as well a couple of times per month. If you want all of that stuff, you need to make sure you go to my website and click on the waiting list button. Putting yourself on the waiting list doesn't have any obligation, anything like that, but it does mean that once we're getting ready to open, and once we're open, you will get all the information you need about exactly what you get in the membership and exactly how much it costs and what you will get out of it all. For my existing members, this is going to be a change for you too. There's going to be more in it than there was previously because we're adding these co-working sessions, we're adding the introduction to the membership, we're adding this kind of quarterly approach where we'll have an opening session and a closing session where we really kind of set our goals over that quarter. So any of you who are in already are going to get even more than you were getting previously. And this for me is that kind of final example of how to change your plans. When you then change your plans, when you decide what it is you do want to do, I want you to make it a complete no-brainer that this is the best decision you've ever made. I am super excited. My membership is going to be twice as good and half the price. And I can't wait to meet all of you who haven't yet made it to any of my live sessions and who would love to get the support that you need to succeed in your PhDs. So I am making this the right decision. And I really hope that if you are trying to change your plans at the moment, or you're considering changing your plans, that this episode has helped you. Do let me know. If you're on my newsletter, just drop me a reply. Let me know what decisions you're making at the moment, how you might change your plans, see if I can help, and go get yourself on that waiting list. I hope I see all of you in the membership, at the end of January. If you're not listening to this live, by the way, it's not January, just have a look on my website. It will tell you exactly when the membership is due to open next. You can just jump on the waiting list, and then as soon as it's open, come on in and let me give you all the support you need. Thank you everyone for listening, and I will see you next week. Thank you for listening to the PhD Life Coach podcast. If you like this episode, please tell your friends, your colleagues, and your universities. I'd appreciate it if you took the time to leave a review, give me stars, stickers, and all that general approval as well. If you'd like to find out more about working with me, either for yourself or for people at your university, please check out my website at thephdlifecoach.com. You can also sign up to hear more about my free group coaching sessions for PhD students and academics. See you next time.